Hi, everybody. Welcome to Soul to Soul. Thank you so much for joining me. I am your host, Medium Kelly Kristin, and thank you for listening to A1R Psychic Radio and Moonstruck TV. I hope you are having a fantastic night because it's going to get a little bit better because I invited my good friend, Maurice Sinclair from Ancient Made Modern. So let's say hello to him. Hi, Maurice. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
of course. Thank you for having me.
You
Appreciate
know
that.
what? Oh, yeah, of course. I thought not to cop out, but I thought I would have you introduce yourself because I don't want to miss any of your fabulous things that you do. I mean, you have a wealth of skills. So, do you mind? I
No, I
know.
don't mind.
Okay. So,
Yeah, so
just go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, on paper, I'm a Reiki master, a psychic medium, a shamanic practitioner, and an Akashic Records healer, among other things. And yeah, and I run my spiritual business under the name Ancient Made Modern.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I know we can find you on your website, Ancient Made Modern, and all your social media. So,
Definitely.
yeah. So I know we kind of talked about what we were going to talk about tonight, and I'm just like so fascinated with generational trauma and how we as psychic mediums can help our clients. Um, it's just it's mind blowing to think that our when our grandmother was pregnant with our mom had all of the eggs she ever was going to have forever, right? So it's like we were part of our grandmother before our mom was even born. And I mean, that to me is just like mind blown. And just finding that out that, it can affect our DNA is just so interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I thought we would kind of talk about maybe like how we as psychic mediums can incorporate that into our practice, how we do that,
Mhm.
how we can maybe help our clients to heal through this process. Um, and I know, I'm sorry, I'm not letting you talk, Maurice, but I
No.
want I want to say one thing. I did catch you the other day on social media, and you were doing something just like this with
Mm.
one of your friends or clients, and you were talking about how she wasn't just healing; she was healing herself, but she was also healing um, for to heal other people and to heal her family line as well as those who came before her in her family. So, can you just maybe talk about how you use this in your practice and maybe what you were talking about in that one little clip?
Yeah, so I feel like this concept of solving for generational trauma, it can come up in pretty much any modality, really. So, for example, I mean, doing Reiki, I might be directed towards a specific energy signature in the body. And when I dive into it, I see like, oh, this is a thing that's representative of something that's been in your family line for quite a long time. But what ends up happening is that within the context of our own lives, we end up, when things sit in our DNA, it almost acts as like a projector out onto our 3D reality. And
Oh, I
it
love
creates these
that.
scenarios out in our 3D reality that forces us to relive this energy signature somehow. So, for example, there's anger sitting in your DNA, for example, that will radiate outwards onto your physical 3D environment, creating scenarios where your anger will come up to the surface. And the purpose of that is to help you recognize it and solve for it so it doesn't have to keep being a thing uh, going forward in your family line. But in my experience, yeah, like it comes up in every context. It can come up in Reiki, even psychic. You know, a person asks, "But why is it that I can't? Why is it that I can't get along with somebody? Or what is this illness about?" For example, even it doesn't even have to be like an emotional thing. And oftentimes the answer ends up being, "Well, this is something that you've inherited from your family." It's interesting how many physical ailments are inherited as well, you know, and it might look slightly different. So, for example, maybe a person that you're reading for, a sitter, has uh, heart palpitations or something, but then in their family line, someone else had a completely different heart issue, but the area of the body remains the same. So there's this pattern of um, maybe breaking one's own heart. maybe betraying oneself
Mhm.
that has repeated itself over and over again. So this ends up
Yeah.
being the answer to the question that they're asking. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so I don't know, it's so fascinating to think about it, and it's fascinating to work with people. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of tears, when I'm doing these readings, but it's really heartfelt. It's like you're touching the soul of the person you're reading for, and
Mm.
it actually feels like we're healing and we're helping them to heal as well and giving them the skills. And I think half of the battle is knowing what you're carrying with you. Right? 'Cause
Absolutely.
a lot of us think, "Why am I this way? What's causing me to be this way? Why do I have this physical ailment? Why am I angry? Why am I sad?" You know? So,
Yeah, and like I'd even argue that the tears that are expelled are necessary. They're releases, and I like how you said that it's like as if we're healing them. Because I'm one that believes that maybe this is the wrong platform to say this on, but I don't really believe in that a person is capable of healing another person. All the healer can do is enact one's own healing ability. They can create a space that allows for their healing abilities to kind of activate. Do you know what I mean? So they create
yeah,
this
absolutely.
space for that. And yeah, as mediums, we have the honor and the pleasure of being able to do that for people, helping people to heal themselves. And like you say, like sometimes half of the issue, or maybe sometimes even all the issue, is
Yeah.
simple awareness, letting them
Yeah.
know what it is, and then it kind of activates on its own. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, I like how you said that enabling our clients to heal themselves. That is, it's almost like, therapy, right? Like almost like spiritual counseling without the counseling license. I don't have one, but
absolutely. Yeah,
um,
me neither.
yeah. And I like the idea that this can also be done in different ways. So it's almost like we can model it to, not like we come in saying we're going to do a certain thing, like we're going to only do Reiki or we're only going to do past lives or we're only going to, give you something to work with to heal. It's, I don't know about for you, but it almost comes intuitively on how I work with my clients. Is that how it is for you?
Absolutely. And it's funny because like I'm beginning to move out of a space where I'm even dividing my services into different names. I only
Oh,
offer different services. It's really to help people make a decision about how they want to approach their ailment or their issue, or whatever it is. It's more for the client to kind of like breach
hmm
the ego, to breach the human mind that wants to pick something, that wants to decide that, hey, this is the thing that I need. But when I work, it's everything. Everything's activating
right.
all at once. So for example, I did a reading today, and it's supposed to be a psychic reading, and we ended up getting into past life stuff. Because
Yeah.
intuitively that's what was required of the person, so. I'm the same way.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the things that I like that you do that I don't do is, like, shamanic practice work.
Mm.
Do you do, like, do you ever use that, like, m mind journeys or what do you ever use, shamanic work in this process of the
It's
generational?
so interesting that you say that, because the answer is yes. Because
Okay.
so going back to the example of Reiki, so the first spiritual modality that I ever actively did was shamanic journey. So
Mm,
thus all of my spiritual practices kind of run through that filter automatically, because this is kind of what my mind built everything else around. So what that looked like for me, especially for example in a Reiki session, I might journey into the person's body. Do you
oh,
know what I mean? And I end up
yeah,
just kind of reporting everything that I see. And sometimes it'll be very symbolic. I don't oftentimes just see like body parts. Oftentimes
right.
I'm walking into the heart space that might look like a long tunnel, and then I end up having to allow whatever it is that's needed to solve for the issue, or to help them solve for the issue rather, move through my body into their body. So how this would look in the context of generational trauma. So I might walk into somebody's uh, sacral area, and I'll see some representation of a pattern of self betrayal, and
Mm,
then I'll have to look at that
yeah,
and kind of look at the origin. I'll usually given some information about the origin of this pattern, and though I might see through the context of the person's current life, if I trace it back, it oftentimes has to do with something that's been passed down generation over generation. Then when I talk to the sitter, it'll be something like, you know what, yeah, my mom had that same issue, my grandmother had that same issue, and that becomes the indicator, like, yeah, it's been happening in your family line for a while.
Yeah. Just, I don't know why I feel like this is a new concept for me. I think I had a hard time. I either didn't think about it or I had a hard time believing, but this is back when I was a school teacher, right? And I used to see this a lot with my students. And I think, gosh, this has been passed down. But I didn't really put it together that it was through like their DNA, like it really was part of their body. So
Mm,
that's just been a huge, within the last, 10 years, huge eye opening for me, and has changed my practice and the way I look at it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't, it's funny because I don't. It's nothing that I don't. I've never learned this. No one ever told me this. I think it's
Right.
something that I just you just kind of trip onto, like, oh, that does happen. That is a thing because you're just kind of told in your work. And yeah, so that's it's. You made me think about that. I was like, where? How did I come across it? I think it just kind of happened incidentally one day, and then I've just been applying the same concept to everyone I work with.
Yeah. And it's some families more than others, I'm finding as well.
Mm,
I just did that psychic detection course on missing and murdered Indigenous women, and
mm,
it really came through in that class because of it's generational. The one of the cases we had was the woman's who was killed, her mother was also killed by a serial
mm,
killer. But even beyond that, just what happened to them, generational, where parents were killed, children were taken away, put in school. So you think these children had no parents and they were traumatized, and that just carries down and carries down, and we're still seeing the effects of that. Um,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
just really, sad and interesting. But I'm the kind of person, like, once you kind of can understand something, it helps. And so I like to help my clients with that as well. I feel like it's a release, right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
I think it's interesting how um, the body, the DNA, can trap both trauma, but also like quote unquote positive things,
Yes,
gifts. You can.
yes,
Yeah, for example, like I know for a fact that I can do what I do because everyone before me was able to do this. Like I the last practicing psychic in my family would have been my great great grandfather, who I only just recently learned. I didn't grow up knowing that. I just recently learned that
hmm,
after I started working. But looking back at my family, I'm just like, oh yeah, my dad is a real psychic. Like they never, they do their stuff to block their gift out, and nor would they probably
right.
accept it. But like if I'm looking like the things that they just knew, they could just do. It's like,
Oh,
oh, mhm,
yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because let's look at it, the glass half full, right?
right,
I always joke that a lot of the clients that come to me for a psychic reading, that they already know, they already know they're just coming for validation
right,
because, a lot of, I find a lot of clients that come to me are very psychic and very intuitive. And then as you get into that, you find that they'll mention, oh yeah, that's my mom or my grandmother, or, it's on my mom's side now that they think about it. So I love that you brought up the part about uh, gifts as well, because absolutely there are a lot
yeah,
of gifts. I think intelligence or um, I think even kindness or a good heart, right? All of
absolutely.
these things I think can be handed down from generation to generation.
I completely agree. Yeah, beyond the spirituality,
Right.
the emotionality, the personality. Yeah, we inherit. Yeah, it's I guess like you say, glass half full. It's important to look at both sides. That we obviously have to look at the things that are less desirable, the things that we feel are painful or traumatic, because there's a lot of medicine in that seeing it. So be like, oh, okay. So what I find a lot is that like someone might be going through something and they're taking this thing on as completely their own, and which is important to do because you do have to own whatever is happening within your own body because there's
Right.
purpose in it. But
Right.
also, it helps the ego to understand that it feels
Yeah.
so heavy because you're carrying probably hundreds or thousands of years of this trauma, and it feels heavy because it's a lot, and a lot of people have handed this down to you, and it's also an honor that you get to solve for it after so much time.
Right. And absolutely, that's the other part of it. Once we recognize what it is, we can start to heal it, right? And
Mm,
and separate it from ourselves a little bit so that we can begin the healing process so that we don't hand it down to our children or our children's children, even though I guess might be kind of late if we already have children, but
So I'm glad that you brought that up because
okay.
I'm of the belief that when we do these things, it's that we heal in all directions, both forward and
Ah,
backwards.
I
It's
love
not just
that.
that we're solving for the people that come after us. We help people who have come before us as well as the people after us. So yeah, it's all virtual.
Absolutely. I believe the same thing. I thank you. And that's going to be like, we're already done. This goes by so quickly, but that's a great note to leave on that we can heal. And, it's always a work in progress and for our soul. So thank you so much for joining me tonight again, Maurice. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, guys, look him up on Ancient Made Modern, and I will see you all next week. Good night.